Ian O'Neill for Severe MMA, and today I'm lucky enough to be joined by Danny Corr, who is the chairman of the Ulster Amateur MMA Association and also has a big part to play in the IMAF setup and regulations and stuff like that. Danny, how are you doing today? Thanks so much for taking the time to talk to me today. I know that you were busy earlier on doing some coaching degrees and stuff like that, so thanks for joining us today.
No, I'm honoured to be on it, and thank you very much for inviting me. I'm going to clarify something just straight away. Ulster MMA basically is no more.
Okay,
so it's been amalgamated, but we can talk about that, sure, as we go on.
For sure, yeah. So what kind of work were you doing today? You were just giving out some coaching degrees and some of that kind of stuff.
So about 4 years ago, I started to develop a course on behalf of IMAF, the world body, to try and do a coaching qualification, because if you're heading towards regulation, like any sport, you have to have a valid qualification that's sort of recognised. So I went down the route of actually starting to write one from scratch, believe it or not. It took about 4 or 5 years, and I've been lucky enough to get it, what we call up here, an OCN, which is equivalent to a level 3. Up here, that's like an A level. Down south, I think that's like is it a higher leaving cert or a leaving cert type of qualification? Yeah, so it's not just a qualification that, you know, a sporting body can give out and doesn't really mean anything. It's like it's an academic qualification, but for coaching of MMA. So amazing, really honoured.
So like aspiring coaches could get in contact with you if they were wanting to just get those qualifications, and they could like do that stuff in the gym then and bring back qualifications there. Yeah.
And look, listen, this is the whole point of this. This doesn't make you a coach. You know, you don't do like anything. You know, you don't do you do your O levels or GCSEs or whatever, show major O levels. You do your GCSEs, and you're not automatically an accountant. You know, you have to get in and you work at it and be that. So, but the idea is that if we're going for recognition, that's a huge thing, that the sport Ireland, the sport in Northern Ireland cannot disregard this qualification, because it's an academic qualification recognised by government.
I get you. So like you were saying there at the start, I was mistaken. So the Ulster Amateur MMA Association, that's gone now, and now you're more so concentrated on IMMAA work, or what's going on with you right now?
Yeah, look, COVID gave us all a lot of time to think, and maybe spend a lot of time on our own, you know, with nobody else to speak to or talk to. But we did. Ulster MMA as a body has been going for a long time, and actually an All-Ireland body was the original. And we actually had an Irish body way back about 7 or 8 years ago, which fielded some people in tournaments at the time, but it just didn't work out with the politics on it, with a small p, you know. So we had Ulster MMA, and very successful, and we did a lot of work, spawned some amazing careers, both in the competitive world and like the refereeing, and just yesterday was the anniversary. Anniversary is not the right word. About 5 years ago, with Mark Goddard over here. To do a referees coaching course, and spawn great careers like Peter Lavery, Mr. Hickey himself, Dak Larkin, all those guys were on that course and get qualified from it. So done a lot of work, but it just came to a point where, if I'm brutally honest, all the work was ending up on my shoulders, you know, and it just became far too much. And we've amazing coaches up in the northwest island who are pushing forward with amazing stuff. And we like to Liam Shannon, there's with the cage conflict and the stuff he's doing is just outstanding. You know, Rodney Moore, one of the originals and the best there. But it just was a time to amalgamate things. And I had a meeting, or I had an approach by the minister up here, Carl McCullen at the time, who was very, very keen and pushing forward. Unlike down south, unfortunately, the minister's down there, very keen and pushing forward MMA, because she knew the benefits of it and knew how it was affecting young people up in this side of the border, you know. And so we've actually an application in now as an Irish body to support Northern Ireland, and it's getting pushed through very quickly, hopefully. Yeah.
Nice. And like you mentioned there, you know, it's not the first, like we reported last week on Severe MMA, that was the first time in history we had a United Ireland team going over there. But like you mentioned, it did exist back in 2014 at the original formation. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah. And we that, I think it was a unique photograph went up at the time of guys and girls with holding up whatever flag they wanted to hold up.
Yeah.
But we've had controversial flags up here, always controversial, not so much down south. But yeah, it was the first of its kind, and we actually, I don't know why you remember not, we selected people to compete on that team by using Battlezone at the time, had an event to select fighters. And also Clan Wars at the time. So there's a lot of things people often forget that happened back then, Ian.
There's a lot of things that went on over a short period of time, like really. And I mean, you had the opportunity to go over there to the latest tournament. It was the inaugural World Cup there, with a great team who did very well. That must have meant a lot to you to see the team doing so well over there.
Amazing, and I'm happy to be the background man now, and just work away with the boring stuff that nobody sees, but it's necessary. But just to be part of that was amazing. North-South amalgamation, some amazing competitors and fighters at a different level. And I sometimes, I think people don't actually understand the level that IMAF is at the minute.
No, they certainly don't. Like, I mean, I had somebody say it on Twitter that the level that seeing somebody compete at an IMAF tournament, that they don't feel that it's at a stage where they're ready yet. But really, if you look at the work that has been done over the last 7 to 8 years behind the scenes and everything, and getting the regulations there, maybe can you explain what difference that we would have had for an Irish amateur athlete, say maybe 10 years ago, in comparison to what they have right now?
Yeah, so what the opportunities you have, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. Just like with the whole IMAF setup and stuff like that.
I've been part of IMAF since it started, basically since about 2014, as you said, and I just saw this was going to be the way for amateur sport to go, and it almost looks like a different sport than what you would see on a show here. These are your young men and women are going across these events, and if they've never been to them before, it can be quite a shock. You've 300 to 400, maybe 500 World Championship competitors, all in the same area, all weighing in every day on weight, and none of this, weighing in. It's a day of weigh-in as well, all doing high-level medicals. And the regulation of it is just immense, but the opportunity there to compete and to fight and bring your level up, if you lose at IMAF, you're getting kids that are losing to the Dagestanians, the Russians, that type of competitor who maybe have had 40, 50 fights. I was pointed out today that one of the heavyweights that fought in Prague beat a US Olympic champion, a guy called Snyder, I think it was. So that's the type of caliber fighting at IMAF. But the opportunities for kids to go in and rack up a vast experience. You might take a loss, you might take a couple of losses, but those losses build you up so much, and you come back. And I'm speaking for the kids themselves here, but I'm sure they know they come back with a different outlook on the sport. And it's building them up for, if they ever want to turn professional, they're going to go through that sort of same system when they're fighting in Bellator and UFC and those big shows. The regulation, the amount of people there, and the attention is put on you at the time, So there's massive opportunities coming. COVID knocked it all on the head for a couple of years, but there's World Championships, there's this World Cup, there's European Championships, and the hope for Irish MMA is that we're going to launch national championships as well.
And of course, that was announced. Yeah. It was announced yesterday that they're pushing back that tournament just to a month now to obviously accommodate some regulations and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But, are you excited about that? Will be the first national championships, and that will set the tone for the World Championships later on this year as well, Danny.
Yeah, and it'll help to select people. There's always been difficulty selecting people. It's so difficult. There's money involved. The cost of getting there to competitions costs a lot of money for young people. But that's always been the case in sport. I grew up in karate and sport jiu-jitsu, and you always had to pay your way, unfortunately, because there's never been support there for martial arts in a big way, even if you are in the Olympics are recognized. So, but where there's a will their way, and hopefully these national championships, will spawn those. We'll be able to get champions out of those, and that'll be a natural selection. But also, it might be a way of raising some funding for those kids that are going away.
Absolutely, yeah, for sure. Like you mentioned, you have you've been ingrained in martial arts for the last 40 years. You got your start in karate. I was wondering, how was it for you as a young man competing in karate? That wouldn't have been as popular as a sport, I guess, back in the day up in Belfast. What was it like for you back then?
It was the opposite. It was huge. Karate. Yeah. You're far too young, obviously.
I'm too young to remember back then.
I mean, I grew up in Belfast in the 60s and 70s and 80s, and I know you can't believe that. You're sitting there thinking,
yeah, you're looking fresh, Danny. I have to say, you're looking fresh, man.
Thank you. But yeah, it was massive, and it was a mysterious thing to do. You know, karate was like just unheard of, and you didn't even see it. Now martial arts is just part of life for everyone, you know, but karate wasn't something there. And karate had the same problems, you know. Anytime somebody got in a fight in the street, it was, the headlines would have been karate killer, you know, even though they went to karate once, you know. So it's the same thing with MMA, but it was massive. I mean, I fought for Ireland, Northern Ireland and Great Britain. Didn't care who fought for it, as long as they selected me, and traveled all over the world with it. And that's what I want for young people now. I mean, that tournament scenario. And I mean, the head coach, Andy, is, as you know, unbelievable martial artist. And he came up through that system of tournaments with judo and traveled the world with that. And that's what you want for kids. I love the shows here, and the shows have done brilliant things for people and still are doing brilliant things for people. But sometimes it can be a one-off, and sometimes kids go on to fight and maybe never be seen again, you know. Because they're fighting in front of their friends and family, and the pressure on them is immense, you know. You're still pressure on you, but you're going away to fight, and you're part of a team rather than just you on your own and going up there to fight and then suffering after it, you know. The IMAFs are different, you know. You fight, if you went, look, if there's 400 people fighting, which I think the World Cup is something like 250 or so, you know, 125 people are going to lose. You know? So you're not alone, you know, and you can share that experience. You're eating breakfast with these kids, you're training with them. After you lose, you're going training with them the next day. I know a lot of the Irish team trained with a lot of their opponents and made friends. I mean, one of my sons is we're fighting on, and he's now got a friend who's from Chechnya. You know, when would that ever happen? You know, would never happen.
Crazy. Yeah. And, you know, even it boils down to, even you look at the World Cup, where we've had a couple of All-Ireland finals as well, which is great to see. But it's also
especially
something that
with women, especially
exactly, yeah. We've seen Shauna and Kerry Ann in the finals there in the bantamweight. I mean, it was great to see. You know, I thought it was a very successful tournament, and the whole team and all the coaches must have been superbly delighted with what went on.
Amazing the way that every one of those young people behaved, you know, and, you know, represented that flag, represented the country. And, you know, and we always talk about the medal winners, but I think in the quarterfinals we had something like 18 people get into those quarterfinals. You know, that's fourth place. That's, you know, that's one away from a medal. You know, when you're fighting against countries like Sweden and Russia and Ukraine and Tajikistan and all the stands who are all funded. You know, those countries are all funded. If you only have to look at Bahrain, I mean, lots of funding going into those fighters. We're doing it by ourselves, and not just the fighters, but all the coaches and the people who are behind the scenes. I mean,
not being funded by anybody, fundraising yourselves and putting in all the effort there. And I mean, that makes the achievement of the success of you guys over there all that better, I think, without being able to get up there, win those medals without that backing. Yeah.
And look, the hope is that we encourage more clubs that aren't involved or think there's something that's going on the board, or, you know, to get on board, you know, because of it, it's amazing, and you'll not look back once you get involved and get on board. I promise you that, you know.
Yeah, 100%. There's a couple of things I'd like to speak to you, Danny, in particular. The two organizations that you set up, the Fight for Peace and the Changing Lives Through MMA organizations that you set up. Could you speak to me a little bit about those two organizations as separately, I guess?
Yeah, well, it's actually called Fight to Unite. The Fight for Peace, a big organization who I partner with to help me do stuff with young people. So, it was something about, I can't remember, I think it was about 7 years ago when I was lucky enough to go to Brazil, to Rio, to work in the favelas. Not working in the volunteering favelas, coaching and learn about the way they do things. And Fight for Peace has an academy over there, which obviously in the middle of it's a Mari favela, it's called. The gang warfare is horrendous, the poverty is horrendous. But they have a martial arts academy right in the center of it. And the academy just isn't about teaching kids martial arts. It's over there. It's bringing them in first thing in the morning, feeding them if needs be, but also giving them an education. And I saw a lot of benefits and a lot of similarities about back home what we do. Obviously, certainly up the north, we've had our issues and our troubles, and martial arts has always been something that's very neutral, that has brought people together. So like for instance, last year we got funding support from a massive group called Laureus Sport. They're a world body based in Monaco, believe it or not. And they came on board to offer us support to run an education program with young people. So over the last 2 years, we had, and this sounds amazing to me even, and I was the one running it, but it still amazes me, 80 young people who had left school without their maths and English, that certainly essential qualification. You need to get a job, you get any job, you have to have your maths and English, no matter how menial that job may be. 80 young people achieved their maths and English through MMA. So they went to MMA every night of the week, all free to them. And we brought tutors into the gym, and we linked up with a local school, and they were able to sit their exams. I mean, kids who previously hated school, a bit like myself. But if you bring them in off the streets, you replace that adrenaline buzz that they may be getting out the street with antisocial behaviour and linking in with paramilitaries and all sorts of stuff, bad stuff like that. Replace that adrenaline with the benefits of MMA and add the education bit in it, and it's limitless what they can do, and as I say, 80 young people who previously hadn't got those exams achieved it last year. So it's something I've been working on for about seven years or so, when we're pushing it forward, and with a gym, SPG and Drogheda have taken up the program.
Nice.
And certainly my goal is to get as many gyms involved in that as we can up here and down south, because it benefits everybody. And I'm rambling on here. You just stop me anytime.
No, you're making my job much easier.
All right. I don't get a chance to speak in the house, So that's it,
man. You go for it. You go for it. Not in any rush here. But I just wanted to highlight that work that you have been doing, because it really is fantastic work. And the amount of work that you have been doing in general behind the scenes and the regulations of the sport in the country. I don't think too many people know what type of work you have been doing. And I guess if we were to go back to maybe 2016 and to the unfortunate incident with João Carvalho, I know that there was a lot of work put in particular around that time in trying to move the sport forward in the right manner. Could you kind of explain kind of what went on at that stage and what work yet you kind of had to do, because it was a pretty dark time for Irish MMA as a whole?
A horrendous time for obviously the family of Carvalho and everybody involved, and of course the complete reaction from government, and still that reaction sort of lingers on, particularly down south, not so much up here, because we've put so much in place from government that the sport should be stopped, and a lot of people don't know that it was that close to being stopped. And certainly there was a show up here that was happening, I think about 2 or 3 weeks after the incident, which the government wanted to just stop and shut down. But and in particular, the time it was myself and Rodney Moore up here north. We went to everybody we could. There was radio stations phoning us, there was government officials getting on to us, and we pushed to keep this show going, because probably the worst thing would happen after that would be that we just shut down. Because if you shut down, nothing, that would never have got up on its feet again, Mm-hmm. But we had to ask people, because no power, no anything like that, ask people to try and put in those major conditions and safety conditions that would help these things not happen in the future, and that was really the start of it. And very lucky enough, the show was happening, it was Clanmore's time, did put those regulations in place. And that was sort of a catalyst to the rest of the shows coming aboard. And I look at we have the safety. I mean, our safety features, our safety protocols for MMA are better than any combat sport across the world. I mean, better than boxing, the stuff we put in place. But because there's a microscope on MMA, we have to do that, and there was a lot of people didn't want to do it, and it costs money, doesn't it? All those things cost money. Money we probably don't have, but it had to be done for the safety. And look where we are now, pushing forward with all these kids that are now safe going to these big major events, and they look at Ireland as gold standard worldwide now. So
And you mentioned a couple of times throughout this interview the kind of difference about what's happening up in the north now, in that you are getting the support of the government and some of the ministers there, and that's just simply not happening down in the south of the country right now. Looking forward ahead to the next couple of years, I mean, can you see there being any major progress being made, Danny? Are you getting the responses from the government down south that you want to be getting at this stage?
I mean, I can't say too much, but there's a real process going on at the minute. And myself and Tim Murphy, who's fantastic, and I thought I was only born bollocks that get in the administration bit of it and all the boring stuff that needs done that people don't really want to do. But I thought I was the only person who was involved in that. But Tim Murphy, the chair, is brilliant at it. So we've had a lot of meetings recently, both north and south, pushing these things forward. And the key is that, how can you not regulate this sport now? Give us a reason why you cannot regulate it, and that's what we're asking. And I'll give you 1,000 answers why you're wrong, and we've got everything in place. And fortunately, we have a brilliant relationship with the sport in Northern Ireland and the ministers up here. And when you have that relationship, then there's another catalyst that's going to push. If the North sporting body pushes us through, which they are really proactive in doing, which is the opposite of what's happening with the South sporting body. They're proactive, they're coming. I mean, for instance, I put in the application with the help of all the colleagues down there, and Sport Northern Ireland come back and say, right, change this bit, do this bit, here's what you need to do, and they actively are pursuing that, because what they want to do is be the first body in the UK and Ireland to recognise the sport. And that's the difference. People always focus on becoming a governing body, and that's not the first thing that we need to do. The sport needs to be recognised as a legitimate sport with everything in place, and that's what Sport Northern Ireland are pushing through. And if we get that bit done, which is very, very close, then that's a blueprint for the rest of the UK, and then it forces the South's hand.
Yeah.
Give me a reason why you can't. Yeah, give me a reason why you can't do this, because it's there. There's nothing really. It's amazing the stuff that everybody's put their back behind and put in place. So there's no reason why you don't recognise this sport. The benefits of it outweigh everything.
Right now, Danny, if you were to, is there a clear path, and maybe what year we could be expecting right now, or do you have like a roadmap on what you would like to, when you would like the support to be recognised down south, and more implications brought in on the north as well?
Yeah, I mean, we're working hand in hand with also the England MMA are pushing this forward as well. So they all meet, Sport and I, Sport Wales, Sport Scotland, Sport England all meet as a UK body. And if we have this piece of work in as it's all in as an All Ireland association with Sport Northern Ireland to recognise, and if we have all this piece of work completed, which we nearly have, I mean, they came back with some amendments, and we went back with the answers to them. So if that piece of work is completed, then it's a fast track to get completed. Obviously, not be this year, but my hope is it doesn't go beyond next year. I mean, I'd be pushing for it to be next year, and I'll certainly be putting the work in and getting more grey hairs here to do it.
Yeah, no, it's great, and hopefully we do see some headway there now, because we've kind of been stuck in limbo for a couple of years now with everything. Obviously, the work that you've been doing behind the scenes has always been progressing, but from what we're seeing from our side, and it feels good to hear you say those kind of things from our side, to know that there is that progress being made. And we have inroads now to them all, when we're producing the information they need. COVID has been difficult, and there has been issues with things happening during COVID which shouldn't happen, and you have to be proactively seen to be following regulations, whether we like it or not, whether we agree with it or not. I mean, they'll jump on any wee thing that they've stepped out of line or somebody's done wrong, But the thing about it is, if they're seeing things that are wrong, then the counter argument to that is, well, give us the power and the regulation behind it, and we'll make sure it doesn't happen. So you can't have it both ways. You can't say, oh, we don't like this sport, but it's continuing on, and you're not giving it a regulatory
body, you know. So.
Yeah, for sure, I agree, and
it's not going away, Ian. You know, it's
no,
getting bigger
it sure
and
ain't.
bigger.
Like it's not like Team Ireland are building bigger teams and they're putting in these teams into these tournaments, and that's only going to get bigger and bigger. Like the interest of the sport in the country, like overall, what we're only sitting at, MMA as a sport is only 30 years old right now, so we're very young there. So I mean, it is going to progress, and the next one that we were talking about is the newly rescheduled national championships, and they're going to be taking place where and at what date now is the new rescheduled date?
Don't ask me the date, man. I'm stupid with stuff like that. But it's looking at October now. There's a few things to put in place. Or sorry, was it September, October? Yeah, October.
Yeah, I think it's October.
No, my brain. I got off the plane in Prague last Sunday and literally haven't stopped to now. So my brain's a bit dead on it. But there's a few things to put in place and try and regulate. And of course, we're all looking at doing national championships to field the team for the world championships. So that's the idea. Mm-hmm. So it's trying to get both those lined up, you know, so things happen and sequence the right things, you know. Yeah,
and I just confirmed they're happening on the 30th and the 31st of October in Belfast. So that anybody who is wanting to compete in the World Championships must compete in those national championships. For a coaching side of things for you, it's going to help you guys greatly in gauging who's going to be getting the seeding places and stuff like that on the team. So apart from that national championships and stuff, like what things are you guys going to be doing in preparation of the World Championships?
So the plan is to have regular squad sessions, and we had, before the strict COVID regulations, we had embarked on a few of those. We had a massive event up in Belfast with one down in Cork, and I've never seen as many you know, high level fighters on the mats. You know, at one point there was 120 people taking part in this event. You know, and it's always difficult. You know, we're trying. You'll always get complaints. I didn't know about this and didn't know about that. But you know, we are generally trying to get as many people and as many clubs involved as we can, because it benefits us all. You know, no matter what history people have had with each other, or I don't like that club or I don't like them or whatever, it's irrelevant. You know, it really is irrelevant. You know, because you should be your only focus as a coach is those kids that are coming along. And if you have something against these things happening, then you're not doing a service to your young people, you know, and those ones that are coming along. You know, it's just you being an old man or old woman like me, you know. So not that I'm an old woman, but anyway.
Not going to break any news here, Danny. I won't keep you too. I won't keep you too much longer, Danny. I really appreciate you taking the time. Before you go, you were inducted into the Hall of Fame in Belfast for the massive amount of work that you have been doing, and it was well deserved as well. I just talk to me a little bit about that, what it meant to you, and kind of like what work went in getting that award.
It was a shock to me, you know, and it was a complete shock. And I'll be brutally honest, I thought it was just being invited to one of these black tie events, and I'd never been really at one. And it was in Belfast City Hall. Amazing. I don't know if you've ever been inside it, you know. So it's a fantastic venue. And I was lucky enough to have my father and mother with me as well at the time. So and it was really strange. I was sitting at a table with George Best's sister and his family. I didn't know why they sat me at this table, you know, and they inducted myself and George Best into this. Wow. So nobody cares about me, you know. So it was me and George Best at the time were put in. But yeah, it was stunning. It was amazing at the time. At the time, I was just stopped coaching the Irish Sport Jiu-Jitsu team, which Sport Jiu-Jitsu is like a forerunner of MMA, and it was you wore gis and on a mats. So, and we'd won the world. I'd won 2 world titles in it, and then the Irish team won a world title in Las Vegas. Remember when that was? 2010, I think it was. Amazing for the sport, and I still shocked at it. You know, I get an invite every year as a Hall of Famer to the City Hall for a dinner. I know. So it's the only free dinner I get every year, so it's fantastic.
Lovely. Well, at least you know you won't go hungry at that time of the year.
No, anyway, once a year, get a good feed, you know, have to wash myself and go down. But it was brilliant for martial arts, and that was brilliant for everything we could push on forward with. And those things help, you know, to be mercenary about it. You know, if you can say that a government has recognised you, then you can't argue against that, really.
No, certainly that's very true. Well, I won't keep you any longer, Danny. I do really appreciate the time that you've taken to speak with us tonight. And I mean, as someone who's covering the sport, who's been following Irish MMA and MMA as a whole, I really appreciate the work that you have put in and the work you're continuing to do right now, and the work that you'll be doing in the future. Yourself and all the guys behind the scenes, Tim and everybody, is doing really fantastic work. And I was delighted to get the opportunity for you to come on here and speak about what's going on and the work that you have been doing. And I'm very glad to give you that platform. And I hope to sit down and have a chat with you again sometime down the line as well, Danny.
Brilliant.
Is there any shout outs or anybody you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, look, there's shout outs for Aisling and Marlene and Liam Og. As you know, we spoke Liam Og. Like, the work they do behind the scenes is unreal. I mean, Aisling and Marlene, the stuff they do behind the scenes, and it's thankless. That admin and that getting all those fighters over to those world championships is not an easy task. All the regulations that they have to go through, and they do all that and don't get any thanks for it. I had a taste of it with Ulster MMA. It was just me doing all that. It's a much bigger animal with the Irish team. And Andy Ryan's pushing forward now with us being the head coach of Ireland, and he's an amazing guy to do that, and I think the right person for it. There's a lot of respect there. Fighters, coaches, all respect Andy. So that would be my shout outs.
Excellent. Well, I'd echo those sentiments as well, Danny. And thanks once again for joining us. And thank you to everybody for listening. If you like what you heard, hit that like button down below, hit the subscribe button, and follow Danny on Instagram, on Twitter. And we look forward to seeing the progression of Irish MMA in the country of Northern Ireland and in Southern Ireland as well, Danny. Thanks for taking the time to join me today.
No problem. Thank you very much, Ian. Pleasure. Thank you. I'll be asleep in 5 minutes. Guarantee you. Yeah.